How you doing? Hey, Dominic. Dominic, is the sound and video okay? Hi, Junior. How are things up in Michigan? Good, rancher. You're here to save the day. Hi, Henry. How you doing? Vinyl Siren. How you doing? Goldfinger. Suleiman. Brian. Jimmy. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Sound all right? Hey, Nigel. Tommy. Hi, Rohit. It's okay. All right. Good. Sounds all right. Great. Okay. This is, I suppose, the question I had. This was a question that Ranchard had asked me a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. I mean, almost as soon as it happened, when Breitling and some kind of something associates took over Universal Geneve, and the couple questions I suppose that are pertinent to it is, you know, why? I don't know if there's anybody or any patents or anything left from the original Universal Geneve that Breitling saw that they would be able to get. I don't know if any of the watchmakers or anything about them. I mean, is that what is it that they actually got? I guess that would be the question. They had the original company sort of went belly up right around the quartz crisis, and they had some interesting stuff. They were the first watch company that had one of the micro rotors. They I guess, and I had one of these. They sold or lent Bulova their tuning fork that they came out in as with the Accutron. I had one of those, and then I guess it wasn't quite as workable or didn't work as well as quartz did. So that was out. So anyway, hey, Planet Earth. Hi, Niner, Jimmy. Okay. H. Moser. Yes. Let's talk about that for a while. Rancher, you want to kick it off there? It says, does Urban Jurgensen have any cachet outside of the watch collector community? You know, that's a real good question. I hadn't thought of that. Does anybody? I mean, it was originally, I guess, a Danish company, and there were some people involved in it, like Derek Pratt, who are very well known watchmakers. He and George Daniels were good buddies, but I don't know, how would that, what did Caribou and Lannon have in mind that they weren't a dead company. They just were sort of not doing the, they just didn't have much for a marketing. Does Universal, okay, that's what you meant. Does Universal Geneve have any clout? I don't know. What do you think? Hey, Eric. Hi, Abdul. So anyway, it's sort of like, what are they getting? That's one question. And the other question is, what are they what are they getting? What might they do to it? I mean, it's not. I when let's see, Jaeger-LeCoultre was bought. Jaeger-LeCoultre is an old name that goes way back. Now, let me tell you what I think was a good acquisition, and I think really did a lot of good was when the Chomet brothers bought Breguet. Who did they bring in? Well, they brought in one of the best watchmakers around, and Daniel Roth, and he immediately went in and worked on bringing Breguet back. Some other people who were involved at one time or another in that same effort were Michel Parmigiani and Kari Voutilainen. So you have, and then not to mention, well, no, wait a minute, was Kari Voutilainen involved in that? Now, he may not have been involved in that, but Michel Parmigiani was. So you have some really top people. Now, I don't see Breitling as, for too long, in my opinion, they were using phony baloney caliber names, implying, not saying. They were essentially ETAs, are probably, I think, the majority of now in Breitling, you're going to find Solida movements. So, I mean, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to have, are they going to bring out like something with Universal Geneve, and people will say, oh boy, I'm going to get a Universal Geneve. The Hong Kong company that owned Universal Geneve before never seemed to do anything with it. There were a lot of people who were sort of, crying in their beer about the good old days and what Universal Geneve was seen as. They were seen as something on par with Rolex, and they were big competitors at one time. But then they're bought and then they're sold, and so sort of like, what's the point? What do you guys have here? They made slim dress watches and chronographs. That was then. I mean, now you have Piaget, who's got stuff, paper thin watches, and you have even Bulgari has some that have done the same thing. Okay, Abdul, they can do a lot of reissues of their old designs. Okay. That would be one thing if they did that, but would they, when we talk about reissues of old designs, do we mean the movements or simply, or what? They have, like they were the first ones to have a micro rotor, but micro rotors, all kinds of companies have micro rotors right now. Maybe Breitling feels that they can capitalize on the recent interest in vintage watches and offer them at affordable prices. That would be a nice thing. That would be, I mean, that might work. Then you may be exactly right. Again, I think one of the questions that Rancher had, does anybody recognize him outside of, collectors? Okay, Tim. Okay, so Tim's point, I think, is an interesting one, and the same thing may happen with Urban Jurgensen, because they were supposed to, Kari Voutilainen and that group who bought Urban Jurgensen were supposed to come out with the new Urban Jurgensen in 2023. Now, right before they bought Urban Jurgensen had a new model uh, uh, that was, I think it was called the Alfred or something like that, that was supposed to be sort of a gateway model, an entry level model for, I think it was around 15,000, something like that. Now, that may sound like a lot, but their other entry level model was over 30,000. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. Hey, Tommy, for me, Breitling is overrated, but I like the new nav timer with manufactured caliber. Yeah, there's I the nav timer is very well known. At one time, the two greatest brands for me, one was Breitling, the other one was Tag Heuer. And that was because they had it in the flight shop I used to go to. But it's sort of like, I don't know. I it's like, what if Tag Heuer had bought them? I mean, I don't see anything too exciting coming out of Tag Heuer, even though I have great hopes for it with Carol Forestier Casapi as being the head of their movement group. What they were, what Casapi I heard was doing was trying to create carbon hairsprings, which is like, oh boy, we got silicon and now we have carbon. I guess carbon doesn't sound quite as, I don't know. Eric, sure, one of their marketing campaigns will include the term Genta design. That always, yeah, with the pole router was one that Genta, I think that was his first, one of his first big designs was the pole router. Uh, I like the name, somehow I have something, I don't know, a pole router sounds more, it also sounds like a stripper. It used to be when they were going over the poles. They still are, I guess, for east-west travel. But it sounds like, what does your girlfriend do? She's a pole router. I'm a sick puppy. Let's see what else we got here. Hi, Andrew. I think UG will do very well with a modernized pole router. How are they going to modernize it? I mean, this is what I mean. If you want something for the tradition, I think what they did with Breguet, they had a bunch of these, I think, watches for the military, I think it was for the French military when the Chaumet brothers took over Breguet, and they sort of had to bring back the traditional sort of ethos of Breguet. And I don't know, I mean, yeah, Breguet. And now I think, if I wish Swatch would leave them alone. I really do. But if you look at the Breguet tradition, they very much have brought that into play. Hard to believe with a silicone hairspring, but that's, as everybody knows and tired of hearing, that's my opinion of it. Hoyt Carrera. There must be something there if they were bought for $1 billion. They paid that much for it? I didn't realize a billion. Yeah, I guess so, Brian. But what? Hey, Paul. As collectors, we need to look at the future rather than the past. It is with new watchmakers that the excitement lies, at least for me. Yeah, but Paul, I agree. But which ones? It's like, if you look at that some of these young guys, oh boy, unfortunately, I can't pronounce their names. One guy, this young French guy, who I like a lot, Nadeau, he is, like the stuff he's doing, he's making key wound watches, which I would love to get one of his. And a couple more, Betterman, I think. There's another couple of young guys, very much pulling back, very traditional kinds of things. And one I just did a review on, uh, they they're doing some very interesting things. But I'm trying to think if they have an existing base or not. So there's a lot of stuff like that, and how they're what new they're going to do is going to be interesting. Niche manufacturing. Let me ask you this. Let me go back. Brian's point about $1 billion. They paid $1 billion for a company that doesn't make watches anymore. Niche manufacturers are building momentum and popularity with the newer, younger members of the watch collecting community. $1 billion. They will try to make the watches from their golden age in the 40s and to 60s almost like modern retro with their in-house micro rotors. Okay. You need to change into a beret to pronounce French names. Okay. Hello from Switzerland. Lots of watch shopping. There you go, Nobby. Is it Nobby or Nobi? Abdul, did they get any machines, buildings? Yeah, that's a good question, Abdul. That was the same kind of question I had too. I mean, what are they getting? But I mean, what's going to be in those buildings? A bunch of cobwebs, or are they going to have some, what? Or is maybe Breitling going to see? Here's, I guess this is what I'm most befuddled about by the whole thing, is that Breitling could have used that money to start really upgrading their own movements. They've got like one to B1 and versions of it. And that is relatively recent, and they did that in cahoots with Tudor. So I think, well, maybe they have two movements now, but Breitling, it's sort of like, when when an emergency occurs on an airline and you're supposed to put on your oxygen mask, if you have a kid with you, they say take care of yourself first and then take care of your kid. Well, that makes sense, because if you pass out, it's curtains for the kids. But this is what I wonder about Breitling. Why didn't they do something horologically really exciting for themselves? Or is the only way they think they can do it is buying Universal Geneve? I don't know. They sold the rights to their movement, but they might upgrade an older movement. Paul W., 70 million according to the internet. That's got to be right. It sounds more, if you're going to have any price, that sounds a little better. This is what I was thinking about. I have a couple here. This is one of them. These guys, Chanel, bought 20% of these guys. And the question is, what for? Are they going to do anything that's going to improve FP Journe? Probably not. They also bought what they don't say how much, but they call it a friendly share of Romain Gauthier. Okay, now what they got there is very different. They've got one of the things that he's got his whole set. He makes all of his own parts, and so that makes sense. Um, uh, God, I got too many watch things in my head. H. Moser bought a share of Agenor. Well, why did they do that? So they can get primarily, I think, for the what is the name of the chronograph? Chrono something. Chrono. It's an Agengraph. That's it. It's an Agengraph, and they bought up part of the company so they could get first dibs on those. Singer is also trying to, and right now, Agenor is trying to keep up with all the business. So it's sort of an interesting kind of time we're in right now. Okay. Tommy, I tell you what, the Chopard, you can blame that on, let me see, Abdul. Tell him it was Abdul's fault. Tell your wife that, okay? If you get in trouble. Breitling is just the alternate universe that some of us are drawn to. Yeah, you're right about that, Niner. Vinyl. If you think $1 billion is for basically using their designs, that cuts the R&D by a lot. Don't know how much it costs, but it must be a lot. I think 70 million, the thing that Paul mentions, probably more like it. And you're right about the R&D. That'll help a lot on that. I think maybe because the Universal Geneve brand is unsullied by modern practices. Could be. It could be. I don't know. It's a hard one to figure on that. Instead of investing to improve the house movement, they acquired a couple to add to their in-house movements, such as they are. You know. Yeah, I think vinyl. I think there's more to it than Breitling. There's something called something or other partners that owns the majority share of Breitling, and they may have wanted to do something to add to their own portfolio that has very little to do with improving Breitling. That's a possibility. I mean, these guys are, what was the name of the Shiner family or something like that had owned Breitling? They sold the majority share of it to CVC something partners, I think. Then the partners may have said, well, we want to have this other thing along with Breitling. I don't know. That just David, let's see, is part owner of Kinesi. Is it? I didn't know that. I know that I know that Chanel is, but I didn't realize that Breitling is. I wouldn't, it could be because of the partnership between Tudor and Breitling on, I think Tudor developed one movement that was used both by Tudor and Breitling developed a movement that was used also by both of them. So Kinesi involvement in that kind of partnership wouldn't surprise me. How much did Boot and Lannon buy Urban Jurgensen for? Good question. I don't know. Um, that's it was Cardi Boot and Lannon and some other investors. There was sort of a group of them. But right now, nothing much is happening. They've had it for over a year, and so far nothing. Couple things that did come out. I think they did say they're using the same P4 movement that Urban Jurgensen has. The one I think would be really exciting would be if they use the P8 movement at Urban Jurgensen that has the detent escapement. That would be, I mean, that would be really something. HRM. Did Breitling Tudor also acquire Butcher? Did that include movement rights? If so, I would love to see a universal Geneve with a Butcher perpetual movement, a peripheral movement on it. Peripheral rotor, you mean? Is that Agengraph? That's right, Nigel. Yeah. Will have Breitling and have in common. Do they have anything in common? I don't know of anything. I think I have a feeling that there's something that really didn't involve the people at Breitling. I think it involves some corporate ownership groups that said, well, we want to have this and we want to have more in one, sort of forming a mini group like what Swatch and Richemont have. Who knows? Orange Hand, they want to do with Universal Geneve what Biver did with Blanc Pawn in the 90s. Blanc Pawn. Problem is the market is oversaturated with revival brands with no connection to original incarnation. That's a good point. I think I think that I don't know. I guess I see Blanc Pawn and I think of Frederick Piguet, who owned Blanc Pawn at the time that Swatch bought them both. They were sort of a package deal. And then Frederick Piguet movement became the movement for Blanc Pawn. I don't know if they did anything else with them. I was told by some people at Harry Winston, that their movements were all going to be Blanc Pawn from now on, which means that they're going to be whatever the Frederick Jacquet movements are going to be. The Frederick Jacquet, I don't know, Frederick, whoever. If Charlize Theron, yeah, if she endorses it, it's all for it. Okay. Do revival brands use a lot of large tents? Only in Oklahoma. And would they be a large tent movement? I don't know. Butcher, right. Have you had any time for the monoblock oscillator? I'm not sure what that is. It sounds interesting though. Okay, guys. Well, listen, I sort of, somehow time's up. I think we find out about these things. They sort of, as they unwind themselves, I would have very much liked to have seen what Breguet would have done had the Chaumet brothers not tried to go bankrupt by trying to corner the diamond market. As it was, they sort of got bounced around. I think the best place they were bounced to at some time was the Daniel Roth. But after that, what happened to him? Who's going to be around for Urban Jurgensen that's still there? I don't know of anyone. We'll see. Okay. New Frederick Constant Movement. Is that by Citizen Watches or is that by Freddie? Okay, guys. Take care. Thanks for dropping by and see you next week.